Welcome back, everyone, to DM Gives Inspiration. Lots of cool topics to share with you in Season 6 here, but let's start out with some mechanics. Let's talk about skills. That big list in the center of your player's character sheets that you may call upon for them to roll, or they may suggest that they want to use. These are in addition to an extension of your player's basic ability modifiers, like the strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma that they have at the top of that character sheet. But what they did in 5th edition was try to simplify things further by making all rolls in these categories based on the proficiency bonus. And proficiency bonuses go up with level, and this has a very positive use. It guarantees that all players, no matter how they roll or spec their characters, gain a set amount of chance to hit, chance to succeed as they go up in level. And that proficiency bonus is often applied to certain skills or saves of the player's selection. Now that seems complicated, and it is, but it is more simple than our previous edition's point-buy systems. In 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons, when you leveled up, you would get a pile of points that you would spend throughout your skills based on your class and your intelligence modifier. And with that pool of points, you would head over to your character sheet and you would purchase ranks in the skills. Based on your class, certain skills would cost more to upgrade than others. A rogue was really good at hide, but for instance, a barbarian would have to spend twice as many points to rank up the hide skill. And in 3rd edition, there were 35 basic skills, though many of them could be further customized, such as types of knowledge, whether it's arcane or nature, and types of craft, whether you were a blacksmith or a woodworker. In 4th edition, they began to combine the various skills and work them down. Now in 5th edition, we are at 18 skills total. This has led a lot of DMs to ask, why don't we just simplify it further? Why do we even have skills in the first place if the skills are being decided by ability modifiers? Why can't my players just roll their stats and now we're good to go? If I want an acrobatics, I'll ask for a dexterity roll. If I want history or investigation, I'll just have them make an intelligence roll. And it is easy. I've run pickup games just with pieces of paper passed out, a couple of dice rolls, and we get to playing D&D in a very light sort of version with just their base stats and their modifiers. The issue with the simplification of the skills across the editions, or the desire for people to want to simplify them further, is that the purpose of these skill checks are being lost. Skill checks are a device for group storytelling. When we simplify our skill rules, we lose a lot of that flavor and it becomes more of a barrier to doing something. For example, you ask everybody to roll stealth checks. Because of this simplified system, your first thought is not what the stealth group looks like. It's how to deal with the failures. The players with successes go ignored while you deal with those people who failed. And those who failed have no idea of why they failed. They just rolled badly, or maybe their character isn't proficient in that skill, so they always roll badly at stealth checks. They expected this. In 3rd edition, what you do is roll a hide and a move silently, 2 different skills at the same time. And those 2 skills together gave you an idea of why the stealth maneuver had failed. Yes, you were hiding accurately. You had a good bonus to hide because of your camouflage clothing, but you weren't moving very silently, so you were found out. Likewise, and often to the enjoyment of the entire table, you could fail by moving perfectly silent, but walking straight through a sunbeam, being in perfect view of the enemy. By reducing the number of skills, by going with just basic abilities, or only using a few of the skills, you're actually making your DM job harder. You are having to come up with more of what happened. The burden is on you to tell the entire story, and it can feel like railroading because of it. And that's not all. If you play a game or even a session that is light on skill checks, you are ignoring a huge part of the martial class's power. Rogues get bonus proficiencies. They're good at a lot of different skills. And classes like Barbarian can get advantage on things like athletics checks. So the first thing you need to do is research. Research what all these different skills mean. And it's not always obvious. In some regards, things have been greatly simplified. Like sleight of hand is now encompassing opening locks, picking pockets, perhaps using a delicate device. But in previous editions, you would have knowledge dungeoneering. If you wanted to know how the stonework was made in a tunnel, or maybe what creature had forged that tunnel, you would roll a knowledge dungeoneering. In 5th edition, you would ask for an investigation roll. And skill checks like knowledge arcana became arcana, but this also confuses modern players a little bit. Because without the knowledge part, and just the arcana part, they think they're doing something magical, when really they're still pulling from their knowledge. So the arcana skill might be able to help figure out a arcane lock on the wall, or help a player deduce the type of spell or class of spell that is being cast by an enemy. It may tell you about the lore of that spell, what school they went to learn that spell. But it does not detect magic. Detect magic is a spell that literally detects the magic in the air. And when you start to research these skills, really figure out what each one of them can do, what situation you would call for that role in, you'll start to discover that some of these skills are weighted towards certain attributes more than others. Such as strength only has one skill on the entire list: athletics. Granted, strength is already pretty busy. It's where you get your attack rolls from on melee weapons. It's where you get your damage. It's determining your carrying capacity. But that's it. And a player could go all finesse, or using a bow or another ranged weapon, and make a dexterity-based character, where they would get their attack bonus from dexterity, their damage from dexterity. But dexterity is also accounted for in armor class, and initiative. And it goes on. Dexterity is also a part of acrobatics, sleight of hand, stealth. Constitution doesn't have a single skill associated with it. You just have Constitution saves and your overall hit points. Very important things. Huge game-changing events can happen based on a single Constitution save. But our poor fighter, who put all their points into strength and Constitution, isn't good at any skills. Meanwhile, our spellcasters, who already have spells for all these different situations to uniquely impact the game and its story, their primary stats make them skilled at all sorts of other things. Intelligence modifiers are factored into arcana, history, investigation, nature, religion. Wisdom affects animal handling, insight, medicine, perception, survival. Charisma augments deception, intimidate, perform, and persuasion. Our strength and our athletics specialized players seem to be at a disadvantage. But we have to go back and appreciate the squish that happened from previous editions. Athletics is a combination of the old climb skill, jump, swim. You can use it to catch yourself from falling. A strength check can be used to break down doors, escape from ropes, push the rock that starts an avalanche. So what we can do with that knowledge is now change our language. Instead of saying athletics check, which is boring, we can say, give me an athletics check to break down that door. Or the player can suggest, I want to use athletics to break down the door. With this increase in information, we're starting to help tell the story, and you as DM don't have to exhaust your brain and imagination coming up with every facet. And same goes for that Constitution score. It may not have associated skills, but you can still call for a Constitution roll in order to get players to walk through a long desert, scarf a meal quickly, see how they do in a boxing match. And let's explore that a little bit. There is boxing in an inn, a good rowdy activity for the evening. Let's let the player contribute to that story. Don't just make it one skill check. Let's call for both a strength check and a Constitution check. And then allow for a little bit of rules lawyering there. A player may say, I'm more of the move like a butterfly type. I'd like to use my dexterity check. Are they proficient in dexterity? Well, then let's let them do it. That changes our mental picture, makes it more descriptive. And we can take this further. We can make this even more interesting and help our players who don't have access to all those other cool skills, or at least aren't good at them, come up with creative ways to play. Let's say your players are making their way through an urban crawl, and a horse breaks loose running down the street. We could call for an animal handling check here. Right now, a simple check, even boring. It's going to have success or a failure. That success or failure has a high burden on the DM to tell the story, because they're not working with a lot of information. Instead, let's build a combo skill check that helps tell the story. So we have our barbarian, a wild man. He knows animals. He knows you need to be assertive. So we'll let that barbarian make an athletics skill check and then add their proficiency bonus to their animal handling. They're not normally proficient at animal handling, but as a wild man, they're going to catch the horse's bridle, pull it down, and assert their dominance, and that horse is going to stop in its tracks. Does the barbarian succeed in the athletics part, so he's got the bridle, but the horse keeps running and now he's being dragged alongside it? Or does he fail to catch the horse, but they dominated the path and the horse changed directions? And you can do this with all types of different skills. And once your players understand the system, they can start calling for it as well. You have a cult in the woods that worships a dryad. Make them make a nature and a religion check. Both succeed, they get all the information. Nature succeeds, they know something about a dryad. Religion succeeds, sure, they don't know the particulars, but they know the nature of a cult and what to expect from them. A player wants to sell something in the street? Well, first, a performance check to gather a crowd. And second, a persuasion check to increase the price. You might combo that with a third skill, sleight of hand, because they want to pickpocket somebody. And with a successful performance and persuasion, they've pulled wealthy elite into the gathering. And now they might have a particularly profitable pickpocket job. You want your players to do a little bit of forensics work, combine an investigation role with a medicine role. What we've created is an organic skill challenge, where both you, the DM, and the players know why the outcome happened the way it did. And as they become accustomed to the system, you can ask them to describe the success. They need to stealth through a thick wood? We can combine nature and stealth. If they're proficient with one of those, we can have that lead the way. And now we know how that player's walking a little more. Could we combine history and survival to remember a story about how the nomads made their way through this desert? Skill checks are not cutscenes, nor should they be binary failures and successes. Use them in conjunction to make interesting narrative. But don't stop there. I feel like with the convenience of D&D Beyond, we've forgotten how malleable these character sheets are, how customized we can be. Give out skill improvements, give out custom feats that affect skills. You could have an event where your druid studies with a dragon, and now their nature checks are 1 point better. That's a perfectly good reward for that side quest. You could also go in D&D Beyond and make a custom feat and attach it to their character. Now they have +1 to religion and nature checks, but only involving dragons. You can also scroll to the bottom of skills, click the gear, and create a custom skill. Skill points as rewards feel really good. Players love them. They also don't impact the whole game-like experience. Let's say you have a group of 5, but only 2 could make it for this session. Maybe they do a side quest with a Thieves Guild and they get 1 point in stealth. That's a big deal. That would feel really cool to receive from your DM. So you'd click Stealth, Customize, Skill Miscellaneous Bonus, select 1, and then enter a note for the player that says they received this from participating in the Thieves Guild heist. This also works in the negative, though should be used sparingly. But if a player's missing a hand, they may not be very good at sleight of hand anymore. Maybe, and temporarily, of course. Knock that down a few points. Your players' character sheets are not only a record of what they've selected on levels, but where they've been, what they've done, what they've accomplished. Let them train, let them seek masters and schooling. Let these skills be part of the reward system. Go beyond the basic level up rewards they get. And let your campaign story be the reason why they've improved these skills. Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find everything about this show over at kylefergusson.com, 2 S's in Fergusson. Music was by Brian Griffith. And I'll see you all next week with episode 2 of season 6 of DM Gives Inspiration.